Because we wanted to include the community in, show them what the police department does on a daily basis, not just like the administrative offices, but what officers are actually out there doing, the detectives, with crime scenes, with the media, what we do with the media, just every facet of the department. We wanted to teach them what we do. K-9's use of force, just to educate them so they have a better understanding. They could take it back to their community and share it with their neighbors of what we're doing. Bike law, criminal investigations, crime analysis, social media emergency management, victim witness rights, patrol procedures. I can go on and on, but it covers like a different part of every part of the police department and what we do. And we go through scenarios sometimes with traffic law. Sergeant Holmes will take them outside and let them do real traffic stops out in the back parking lot and let them see how a real traffic stop goes.
We use simunitions. The guns look real, they feel real, but they sort of shoot a little paint bullet. So they're safe for the people to use. All the residents would benefit from this class. This recent class had our mayor and one of the council members, and I think they thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope they recommend it to some of the constituents.
I really enjoyed having a chance to get to know the police department a little bit more and learn more about the services that they offer and some of the challenges that they face. I was really surprised kind of to get a picture of all the different things that they do. I think oftentimes we think of there just being traffic patrols or things like that you kind of have in your head that a police officer does. And so it was really interesting to get a broad range of different perspectives on what they do and to hear from a variety of different officers about how they experience their job. It gives you a perspective on the police department that I don't think you get otherwise, I was just really happy with all the interactions that we got with the police officers and really grateful to them for all the energy that they gave us and the willingness to answer our questions and talk with us.
The reason why I took the class is I had heard about it before from a neighbor, and so I was like, well, it sounds interesting, so I wanted to see how what really goes on in a police officer's life. So I enjoyed the class. I would recommend it to anyone in the community to take the class to find out that to serve and protect is a lot behind that saying.
I've done other classes just like this one, and this one is actually one of the best that I've done so far. Take the class, take advantage of it, especially it's free, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people enjoy it.
It's a great collaboration between the law enforcement and the community. I'm ecstatic to be here tonight with the graduates. I think it's a great program. These individuals, including the mayor and a council member, have got an opportunity to see firsthand what we do as far as traffic stops, as far as community relations, as far as firearms. So it's a great program. And connects us with the community.
It's just been really a wonderful experience. I have new friends that I've met, and not only that, but I've actually called on Kathy. Hey, Kathy, what about this? So now that there's more of a connection. There's a link in the community. I think the class affords people the opportunity to expand a little more. Not so much their horizon, but their connections to the people in the community. I loved doing the Emergency Operations Center, and about 6 years I can retire, and so I can even volunteer to do something like that. I do a lot of volunteering while I'm working, but on the side, and so it just gives me an opportunity to give me exposure to let me know that there are other things that I can do locally.
My grandfather was a police officer in New York City, and so I lived with him when I was growing up, and so I'd been around police officers and guns and things, and actually seeing the firearms that the police officers use now was very interesting.
It just was a chance to kind of talk one-on-one with a lot of different police officers, which you don't always get a chance to do otherwise. And so just kind of hearing from them and hearing about what they do every day, I think gave me a different perspective on what it's like to be a police officer.
I feel safer, and I think that there's a lot going on in the news lately, and I know that there are many different sides. So I like to really understand different people's points of view. I especially love the classes where the police officers and the captains and the sergeants that presented to us were passionate and love their jobs, which is almost everybody that works in the Takoma Park Police Department.
It is an interesting perspective to be able to talk to people when there isn't a heightened awareness or there isn't anxiety on either side. Everyone's just kind of relaxed, saying, "Here's what I do. Here's why I do it," and you get to kind of figure it out and talk about it. It just made it a lot more enjoyable, and it takes a lot of the tension out of it. So now, if you do get stopped, you're like, all right, I'm not. These are not faceless people. I know they're actual officers, and they have lives too.
The class was great. It was very educational from start to finish. The biggest downside of the class, I just missed a few sessions, which I'm hoping to make up next year when it's offered again. You learn a lot about law enforcement, especially from the law enforcement perspective. The ride-along was a great time, and I'd really recommend it to everyone.
It's been fun. If you have an interest in policing, if you have an interest in what the police are up to, what they're involved with, how they can help, it's a great opportunity to meet the police department and learn about them.
I signed up for the academy to just get a better idea of what the police force in Takoma Park is doing. There's been so much in the news about police behaving badly, and I just sort of wanted to get the other side of that perspective. And my perspective going into it was that I really didn't have any idea what was going on in my community by way of policing. So it was nice to put some names to the parking tickets.
All of the officers who came to present were very informative. They had really good presentations. There were some hands-on segments that I thought were a lot of fun. I had a good time. I'd recommend it to anyone. I didn't really know much about the Takoma Park Police Department going in, but now that I've taken this class and listened to the talk, I came out feeling that we just have a very good police department. I really like the culture, starting with the top, the officers and the captains at the top, going all the way down. And I think we just have very good policies, very good procedures. I'm really glad that we have our own police department in this city.
Listening to the students, there are some topics that they think that need longer. Like, I know when one of our detectives talks about gangs, they want him to have a whole class. The canines, they want to have a whole class. Patrol procedures, where they learn how to clear buildings and rooms, they love that and want to have a longer class. So I'm trying to figure out how to get 16 weeks out of it without people getting worried that it's too long of a commitment. Every year it gets better and better, especially because I get feedback from the students about what they would like to see in future ones. So this being our 5th one now, I've taken all those notes and I keep working on them. And I know this class tonight said that they wanted to come to class last Tuesday night, even though we didn't have class last Tuesday night. I wish we could keep going. I mean, I would do this for more weeks than just 12.
The other instructors will take their feedback on what they liked about the class, what they didn't. We're probably going to add some additional time to the 12 weeks we already have, because the last two classes wanted more in certain subjects.
I have a greater appreciation for all that our department does, and from learning and getting to meet our dispatchers to Diana Dean, our victim services person, to learning more about what Kathy Plevy does for public information, to our patrol officers, to parking enforcement. It just gives you a greater understanding of the whole range of services that our department provides.
I highly encourage all of our residents to come out and enjoy this program. If you don't know what the police do, if you're skeptical about what we do, this is an eye-opening experience that I'm sure you will enjoy.
Girls Who Code is this really exciting organization started by Reshma Sojani to give girls solidarity and kind of team building around technology. So the intention is there's a gender gap around technology. So boys and girls both study technology, and in the workforce there are a lot more men than women. And so what Reshma was trying to do, I think, was to create kind of, rather than teaching girls to code, more like having a Girl Scouts-like environment where coding and technology can be fun, it can be accessible, you can do it with your friends, and you can all be very supportive of each other. And I think that's what is missing generally from the way that technology is taught. I think maybe boys learn or prefer to learn in a different way, that's more competitive. And sometimes girls end up feeling like there's no place for them in that world or in that milieu.
When I was like really young, like 5 maybe, I went to take your child to work day, and my dad's an engineer, computer engineer, so I went to his work, and then he taught me my first lines of code. Girls Who Code is a club where girls can code how they want. Not like nobody's saying, "Oh, girls can't code." Anybody can code. There's no limit. There's snack time, and you get to pick what you do from the options. It's not like, okay, you have to do this test or you're getting a D. You're not graded, so it's not as stressed. My favorite thing about Girls Who Code is it's project-based learning. Like, whatever you pick, you'll learn more about it. It's not like the whole class will learn about the same thing.
All the adults are willing to help you. Like, let's say I don't know like what this piece of code means. They'll tell me, oh, this is what it means, and they'll help me with the questions I have. I learned how to make a few games, and I also learned how to like make a website, so that's really cool too. I'm making a website for the comics I'm using Storyboard that, and I'm just making a few like comics and putting them on a website so I can show them to you guys.
Well, right now I've been working on on a website. I've been working on it many times. It's for comics. Well, I hope that anyone else could come, and yeah, I've had a great experience, and I hope to enjoy that again.
The idea that I brought to it when I made this club is that any girl can join and can get something out of it. So if a girl's really learning a lot of coding at school and she just wants to come and have fun and work on her projects, work on what she's doing at school, but kind of have a more welcoming environment for it where she feels that resonance of doing it with other people, she can do it here. And if there's a girl who doesn't know anything about this, maybe she doesn't even have a computer at home, she can come here and get support to approach using a computer and making her dreams come true in whatever way she wants to, at whatever speed she wants to.
I'm working on a storyboard, and I'm working on another one with my friend. I made this storyboard because it was fun. I love fun stuff. Anyway, so I made the storyboard because it was fun and because I wanted to. You get to like make up your own characters in all ways. Like a character could be doing this pose, and a character could be doing that pose. And then there's,
Codesters is when you write different codes and then make a mini movie. And what I'm doing is a movie about bullying and how you solve a bully. If you write the wrong answer, then you lose. If you write the right answer, then you win.
It gives us girls private time to do things that boys can do, but girls can't often do it.
It's actually possible to join Girls Who Code without ever setting foot here and get a lot of tutorials and all these platforms and things that we're using. I think you can access them online by joining Girls Who Code at home, online.
It's a little bit of a challenge to both be organizing it and displaying some work, but it was a hectic week, but I think it all came together really well, and I'm excited about the other artists who are showing work, Claire Winslow, Jackie Cressetta, Farhad Haidarian. They all have really great work. The theme of the show is fluid dynamics. It's kind of a scientific term, but it also applies to a lot of the artwork in the show.
These are some of the more recent works I do spontaneously. I try to choose a color theme, and then build over that in a rhythmic way. Try to not plan as much and just control what's happening. And it generally works or it doesn't. So whatever works, I save, and if not, I'll either go over or discard.
I work in a wide variety of media, including acrylic paintings, hand-pulled prints, digital prints, including the piece behind me, which is a digital print on fabric, which also I incorporated embroidery into. And I did that because I wanted to add more surface texture to a digital print. And I'm a longtime printmaker also, who's recently got more into painting and working digitally because it allows me to work at a much larger scale than traditional printmaking does. I work in so many different media, but I guess the one we're standing in front of is probably my favorite, just because I find the scale exciting, especially for someone who's been doing printmaking, which involves generally working fairly small. Recently, I've found that there's so many limitations to that, so I find it exciting to be able to see a piece come back to me that's this large, and then hang it up on my wall and start to embroider or sew or otherwise work with it. So this is new for me to work at such a large scale, and I intend to do more of that because it's kind of gives me an energy boost. It's exciting.
So the piece that I've created for the suspended space within the Atrium Gallery is called Leap, and it's a site-specific installation about the creative process. Each one of the components has something to do with one aspect or another of the creative process, whether it has to do with persistence or cultivating ideas, and even protecting ideas, intellectual property versus the opposite of open source and sharing your ideas. Who owns the ideas? One of the components that has to do with changing perspective, the importance of play and of looking at a problem from a different angle.
Well, I'm working on 3 different series, or I'm showing work from 3 different series. One of them is melted vinyl. I take old records and I put them in the oven for a few minutes and they go sort of floppy. And then you can sculpt them into sort of different shapes. And then I use a lot of different layers of spray paint and put sort of different found objects in them. They're kind of about ideas of nostalgia, how records are making a comeback, and also sort of these old toys and how we remember things from the past almost differently than when we lived them. And then I've got another series of work called Ghosts in the Machine. And it uses old circuit boards, about 100-year-old metal photos called tintypes. And the idea behind it is sort of this dehumanizing obsession that we have with personal technology, with our phones, and how we just walk around like this all day and don't interact with people, don't really live in the moment. And so I use the tintypes sort of to represent our humanity, and then they're usually inside of a circuit board with the idea that we're kind of trapped within this sort of digital world that we've created.
You spread the canvas on the ground, on the floor, work on the floor, and then just go around it. I've done dripping and smudging, and then stretch it over stretcher bars.
I may start with collaging some drawings, prints, paintings, and other drawn or painted marks. I might scan some pieces of those and then collage them in Photoshop. And so I'll start with a base in Photoshop and then continue to add more layers. And I make sure I work at a very high resolution, and that's how I can have this printed so big. I think it had to be something like at least 10,000 pixels wide. So my trusty old laptop was chugging along, having a hard time, but it made it. And I was able to send some very large files to the printer.
I think that for me, one of the challenges, I knew that I wanted to work with something very lightweight so that it could be hung from wires. But it's hard when you can't get into that space yourself physically and when you don't have very specific measurements. So you have to, there's a lot of guesswork, I think, with just knowing how big would the piece need to be so that it would convey in a large space, to be light enough to hang from the wire system. So I think it was that kind of those, spatial challenges. And then I guess getting hundreds of hours of stitching in before the deadline was a big challenge.
Part of it's just collecting the materials and finding stuff, either through like thrift stores or sometimes stuff I just find on the street, or the melted vinyl. A lot of those I get also from thrift stores, because I'm not going to be melting the Beatles or Rolling Stones records. Most of them are from musicians no one's ever heard about. I use spray paint, a lot of different layers of spray paint, and if you do a layer of spray paint before it's dried and you put another layer on, the other layer will start to sort of come through, and then it creates just this kind of interesting sort of ceramic look to it. A lot of times people can't really guess that they are records because they almost look more like ceramic sort of bowls in a way.
Music definitely helps, and generally I try to think about rhythm of life and nature and the rapture of the whole thing.
Oftentimes I will notice unconsciously the change in season through the windows of my studio. I'm fortunate to have very large windows, and I observe changes in light, changes in season, objects that fall onto the ground, and branches and things that are in the window. And I think those subconsciously get into my brain. I'm very interested in texture, in organic shapes, and nature as a source of subject matter. I'm interested in relationships, humans' relationships to nature, and relationships with each other.
The work is loosely inspired by contemporary reinterpretations of this Korean art form called wohagi, which is a wrapping of fabric that is used to wrap objects, whether it's maybe a gift or objects in the home, food, etc. In contemporary reinterpretations, they use translucent fabrics, and the seams are reinforced by the way they're folded, and that gives the form structure. And what I've done is a riff on that by creating forms using a very translucent, starched fabric and putting wire within my scenes to give it additional body. All of my stitches are on the outside edges to delineate the forms, and I think of it as sketches that have leapt off of the pages of my sketchbook and into the space.
This is a very good space, and I like the fact that it's in a community center. All sorts of people, young people especially, can have connection to it. And I love the space. This is great.
I love group exhibitions. I always enjoy meeting and working with other artists. It gives me a chance to meet new artists, and we all complement each other, and we all have something to say, and I learn a lot from other artists' work, from seeing them. For example, Jackie, who made the sculpture here, she had sent me a photo of one of her pieces about 6 months ago, and in response I created the middle piece with the blue because I wanted to echo some of her white transparency. So that's what I mean about the engagement and sharing of ideas that happens in a group show like this. I'm just delighted to be here, and I love the size of the space, and I love the energy, and we've got quite a good crowd here today, so I'm very happy.
This is fantastic. First of all, I'm so grateful to Shanti Chandrasekhar and also to Brendan, who helped not only with the installation, but gave me the opportunity to create an experimental work for this space. This space is an exciting space to create for because you can do something experimental, and it's those types of experiences that take you around the corner in your own creative work and bring you to new dimensions, new ways of working, new methods, and it just informs your work just by the very experience. And then the connection of having people come out from the community, meeting new people, giving their response to your work and collaborating in a way with the other artists showing in the within the group. It's a wonderful experience. I'm really grateful.
We're actually looking for artists to participate in shows next year. And the deadline is June 4th, and you can apply. You can look on the city's website. It's at tacomaparkmd.gov/arts, and the online application form's available there. Artists don't have to be city residents, and there's no charge to apply. And so we're looking for pretty much anyone who works in visual arts. And then for other upcoming events, you can also go to tacomaparkmd.gov/arts or to the city's Facebook page under the events. And then we have all our other events, not just art exhibitions, but film screenings, lectures, all kinds of fun stuff. So you guys should come out.